I apologize for being remiss and being late. I tried to coordinate with Morgan's schedule. We were going to record last night, which was Wednesday, but I was too tired and I'm coming down with something. So I just said I need to go to bed, and she and I are going to record perhaps once classes are done, which is December 12th for me. So as you can imagine, in school, all that stuff is kind of coming to fruition at the end of semester, and so I've been really quite busy, and I haven't been in the house. The weather's been dodgy, and so I've been spending the night down in Orono at different friends' house. Dear God, I'm going to be a speech-language pathologist. It's a lot of plurals and possessives. So all the same, and that my parents... So I've been doing a lot of driving, and I've just been out of sorts. And in fact, my knitting has kind of suffered for that. My spinning has definitely suffered for that, and the podcast has suffered for that as well. But there have been some extremely positive events that I've been able to make some time for. So I'll tell you a little bit about those today. I want to welcome new and returning listeners. I said visitors. Viewers? New and returning viewers. So appreciative of taking some time to spend chatting about and sharing ideas and sharing inspiration about wool, which I find is pretty much what we talk about on this podcast. And I have been doing very well to not just be focusing on grays and browns and blacks, as you will see. So thank you so much as well for the connections outside of the podcast, via Instagram, via Ravelry, in person, PMs, thoughts. I very much appreciate that. I know I always say that. I always use that word. But, you know, as this project, Fiber Trek, evolves, those pieces are fundamental to keeping Tyler and I on track for the trek into the possibilities. So, and let's see. I wanted to welcome a couple people who have introduced themselves in the introduction thread, which would include Miss Paula Nitz from PA, or Pennsylvania. She is currently hoping to expand her hobbies into spinning, but would like to get a larger space to accommodate that. So fingers crossed, house next year. So we're all pulling for you so you can start amalgamating and compiling fleece. So, and we can certainly help enable you to do that. I also wanted to welcome Vestal PC. She's from Ottawa, Canada, one of my favorite Canadian cities. She's currently learning to spin and has had quite a bit of acquisition of black and gray. So, yay! And probably finds this podcast appealing for just that reason. She mentioned, interestingly enough, that there was a farm, or maybe was, just west of her that was an Icelandic farm, and is potentially the root flock for all the Icelandics in North America. The genetics out of Iceland were controlled quite heavily and still are, and so that was quite interesting. I had never actually heard of the woman who had founded that farm, but thank you so much for sharing that information. I also had Heather01851 from Lowell, Mass. introduce herself. She doesn't have any room for rare breed sheep in her space, but she is right next to the Textiles Mill, the National Textiles Museum in Lowell, Massachusetts, which ultimately I haven't been to, but when I think about Fiber Trek and I think about our first series, and I can talk a little bit about this maybe later, but maybe I'll just dream a minute here. I feel like it would be in New England. I geographically would divide up areas, and would start in New England, and we would start at this textiles mill, because I really want to lend some historical credibility to what we're talking about and the impact that it had on the economy of the Northeast, which was heavy, and the impact it had on women and women's work and urbanization. Of course, I could go on and on. But anyway, so I thought this would be a really interesting place to jump into the textile history and current state of textiles in the Northeast. So anyway, Heather, you and I might be able to collaborate in some way in the future. So, as all of you actually. This is great networking, and you bring a lot of possibility for me to find the stories to tell. You all have stories, and you all have stories that you're interested in sharing, and people that you know, and fibers that you've worked with. And so at some point, I may have to call on that plethora of expertise. Some very exciting news, speaking of calling on expertise selfishly. Disa's Craftwork podcast and Fiber Trek, I know I'm so late to the game on this, we are co-sponsoring a craft along for the Sami bracelets. This pretty much was a bit of me being like, will you teach me how to how to make those? And we just kind of evolved into bringing a whole bunch of people in, and she's just so generously and kindly offered to share this skill with us. It will be happening November, December, and January. People are already ordering their supplies, and there is a link in both of our groups, Disa's Craftwork and Fiber Trek, under the Sami bracelet, CAL, Craft Along. And there's links in there to a Swedish supplier as well as a kit that is supplied in the United States. I have gone ahead and ordered from Sweden with 2 other people, and it's shipped, so I'm looking forward to receiving that. The freight is not too bad if you can find a group to go in on, so I think it's flat rate. And there will be prizes, there will be video tutorials, there will be beautiful bracelets at the end, and there's, again, the list of supplies that you'll need in those 2 links in our podcasts. So really, really excited about that. I'm also really, really excited about, on her last episode, or 2 episodes ago, the episode where she's walking in the outdoor museum, she shows her Sami boots, and I think I'm going to ask for a pair of Sami boots for Christmas. So I'm like turning into mini Disa in Maine, which imitation is the best form of flattery, I guess. But the Sami boots, you'll take a look at them. You can type it into Google. They're very kind of earthy and textile-y, historically, and so they just really appeal to that sensibility and my obsession with Northern culture and Northern craft and folk art. And so go ahead and take a look at those because they're gorgeous. And I'd love to, Sami boot trend, if you will, here in the state of Maine. I'll probably be the only student on campus wearing Sami boots. My thought was too, they're not lined, I don't believe, but I thought I would make Icelandic felt insoles, so I'd felt some bats, cut out the insoles and insert them so I could actually wear it as a winter boot, and also maybe even make a felt liner, kind of make the felt and then sew it up the center of the foot. But we shall see. It's kind of the same concept as Steger mucklucks, if you're familiar with Steger mucklucks out of Minnesota. I bought my husband a pair of those 3 years for Christmas, and he loves them. So kind of bringing that all together. So anyway, please check that out if you're interested, or you might even just want to see what the finished products look like, because I think they're going to be gorgeous. I also wanted to let people know that one of my favorite podcasters, both in person and on podcasting, when you listen, Sarah Pomegranate released her first design, which was Another Door Opens, which she kindly gifted to me. I wanted to go ahead and show that to you. Put my coffee down. It's 59 degrees in my house because I haven't built a fire yet. This is why I have on, this is the Rivington Cowl by Christine Kapoor, and this is Such a Winter's Day by Heidi Kermeyer, Romney, Coopworth, all of it Maine. I just realized that. And this Another Door Opens, she has it knit in a couple different examples. My comment, of course, was it's beautiful. I'm sure it will look beautiful in gray. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And, but I actually, in fact, think that I will, sorry, I keep doing that, that I will actually, in fact, think I will knit it with, I have some Jill Draper Make stuff in a really beautiful turquoise and gold, and I thought about doing the edging in one of those colors, you know, opposites. So that will be really fun. But let me go to I'm in the Indie Design gift along thread right now, looking for anything that I might want. But I love this concept on this shawl. It's very basic, which means that, I don't mean basic in a not interesting kind of way. I guess I mean simple and then that simplicity has everything that you can need. And to play with color, to accent an outfit, to highlight a gorgeous yarn or a special yarn. So it really lends itself to a lot of sentiment, if you will, in its design, because you're not necessarily tied in to specific it doesn't have a complexity that's going to outweigh the magic of your wool. So let's see if I can make this work. I'm sorry, I'm not unorganized, but I'm not like super with it. Possible? I know I have a window right there, which is making it really hard, but you can kind of see it. That's the color, but I really wanted to show you the gray one she did. And it does have some nice texture, but again, it's on Ravelry. This is a workout. You can see there's some garter stitch in the center there. So again, like I said, just a really versatile pattern. And one I can't wait to get on the needles. I'll be finishing a shawl here, and I'll probably throw this one on for class knitting and or commuting knitting, and or, you know, it's going to be the holidays, and so there's other crafts that I need to get done. So being able to pick up and put down something very easily. Now I say that, and I haven't knit it. So, but I have the utmost confidence that that will satisfy that knitterly need in me to just meditate, row, 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 back and forth. So I'm really excited for her. Kudos to you for getting that out there and putting the time in and creating something gorgeous for the rest of us. What a great contribution. So I'll go right into my whips based on that, because that's definitely something I would like to cast on, and I need to finish these. I am a fairly, I know, just put the coffee down, Sarah. I am a fairly monogamous knitter. I guess I use monogamy loosely, but I only have 3 projects on the go right now, and some of those, each have their own specific place where I work on them, if you will. So I'm working on the Orion's belt. It's in my beautiful Highlands on the Fly bag by Bling Your String. I love her fabrics and I love her design. I'm knitting this out of Upton yarn. Do not freak out. Hell did not freeze over. I want to be careful because there's a lot of fabric on these needles. But yeah, Upton yarn. So I bought this at Highlands on the Fly. This is Matter, and this is Matter and Weld. And I've just started the color elements, which will ultimately, there's a whole bunch of geese, unbelievable geese, like the most amount of geese I've ever seen flying by my window. Everything is iced up. The pond is iced over. So these guys are there's kind of 2 waves that we see moving down. This must be one of the later waves that's moving through. So you work a series of short rows, and then you ultimately will do a belt or a band of knotwork. And I don't know, again, if it's going to come up on the on the iPad, but I'll bring that up. The Upton yarn is 3-ply Coopworth. It's from Buckwheat Blossom Farm in Maine. They're a biodynamic farm. They use wind and horses, and he's also the shearer of my sheep. I hope to visit Jeff and his farm. Oh, rats just fell on the dog hair floor. I hope to visit Jeff and his farm for a fiber trek, perhaps in the summer. And maybe the fall when he'll be shearing. And they have a gorgeous group of Coopworth. She raises Coopworth for spinning fleeces. And I realized, I think I said this last time, I've been saying Coopsworth. I don't know why. Maybe I just want to add that Coopsworth. Maybe it just sounds a little, I don't know. Anyway, so anyway, that's really an exciting yarn to work with through Upton Yarn. So naturally dyed and grown in Maine. It's a 3-ply, so it's really round. It's got a lot of structure to it. It's strong, but it's I mean, this is Coopworth, and I'm wearing it around my neck. So it's definitely a presence that I feel, but it's not discomfort. I would never ever use the word scratchy to describe it. I would just use it as substantial. So here is Orion's belt. It's a lot of knitting initially, or at least I'm finding it that way. Yeah, not gonna work today. Nope, sorry. Trying to gather all the light that I can, so. And I couldn't be outside because it was rather chilly. I really wanted to show off this work in progress because it's a hoe. It's a half object. This is the Waffle Cream with the Serenity Farm yarns, which is Corriedale alpaca. Love it. So thrilled with the texture on this and the strength and the elasticity. I'm thinking I may reinforce the heel and the toe. If I can find kind of a silk thread or maybe a bit of mohair, or spin a little bit of mohair thread, really, and like worsted, and then sew that in versus using nylon. So I started the other one. I have not made much progress because I have been just not available. So here it is. I knit this in class. I'm knitting these on size 2 cubics, and sorry, I should stop apologizing. And I'm knitting the Orion's belt on a size 6, and I don't have the millimeters. Oh, I might have the millimeters handy. It's not intuitive for me to be like, oh yes. So I apologize for that. Oh, I just apologized again. Oh, if you were taking a sip of water or tea for every apology I made, then you may have to go to the bathroom now. So 2.25 millimeters for the size 2 cubics. And the 6, I don't know. So I'm knitting those on a US 6. So hopefully that's not too inconvenient for you. My last work in progress is the Delius Fern Maybe Bark. Maybe bark, fern may bark. Because the neighbors are barking. The neighbor's dog is barking, I should say. This is Hatchtown Farm, Coopworth. You have seen this before. I've finished the first side and I'm working on the back now. I had a little trouble with the directions for this and I kind of goofed it, fudged it. And I'm hoping, I've kept track of my gauge. I am getting gauge. And I'm hoping he'll like it and wear it. So there it is. Hi, Fern. She's a little bit of a belcher sometimes. Aren't you? Don't bark at the jays. You're going to blast people out. Oh, sorry. Oh, we go again. So those are all my works in progress. I'm just a boring knitter these days. Although there were only 2 projects of gray out of the 3. So 2 out of the 3 were gray. So I am holding true to my to my penchant for the natural colors. I do have a finished object I worked on last weekend. These are the Duffers Revisited. I did these for my mother. And then I needle felted the design on and blanket stitched. So that's been kind of fun. And I have the other one, which this is what they would look like plain. They're getting blown out just a bit. And I did these on a size 10 Lamb's Pride worsted, held double. It's okay, Fern. It's okay. Held double. And then I need, this is my Icelandic here. And then I used the same yarn from the toe to blanket stitch the tops. So these were really fun, and I love doing the needle felting on them. I definitely have a goal for next year, which is to make felted slippers, wet felted slippers. And I'm thinking that Jody Clayton of One Lupin, she's an amazing felter and a beautiful dyer and spinner and works really hard for Maine wools. She's located in Bangor and she is online. She has she does do a yarn club, One Lupin. She's going to offer a class, I hope, on felting wet felting wool slippers. So that was my finished object. Those were really fast. I was able to knit those in a weekend because I really wanted to get my mom's present done. I'm not sure we're going to be knitting for other people for the holiday season. I thought maybe doing those for my sister-in-law and my brother half mitts and my dad half mitts, but I'm just not really sure that the family is all about the knitted items. So I have not spun. I think I talked about receiving the fleeces, this year's summer fleeces from the sheep. So those are sitting in my back room and needing to be washed and dried and put into storage. And so that'll be a task. No, Fern, that is enough. Fern, enough. Enough. So those need to be organized, and I think I'll probably do that at the end of the semester when I'm done. So Fiber Trek, I felt like needed to have a revisit because with school and some of the other elements that I've been organizing, the retreat and, you know, just my own knitting, my own family, the dogs, I haven't really been able to give that the attention that it needs. And so Tyler and I are getting together in December to have a powwow about where we're going to go next. He is still in the process of finishing our latest episode, and he is trying to find time to do that. And so we really want to discuss how to move forward. What's our next step? And we feel like the next step, as I've said before, is going to be it's going to be the clincher. We're going to do this project or we're not going to do this project. And so we're going to probably discuss doing an ask for some funds. How we do that, we don't know. But we really like to set it up that Tyler would be able to take some time off and we could get 2 weeks, line up all of our shoots, shoot our 10 episodes, and then enough money to then pay him to edit that. So he and I are going to be strategizing about how to move forward. And it's something I really want to bring to the forefront of the community, and also in the knitting community, spinning community, fiber community. And it's also something I really want to bring to the attention of people on, you know, on the outside, because I feel like there's a lot of interesting information there. That's not just for people who want to knit or spin. So there's some significant plotting and planning. I've also been plotting and planning with Upton Yarns, and she and I have had 2 brainstorming sessions. We're going to have another one I'm not at liberty to really talk a lot about it right now, but we are focusing more on options for our fiber interests, people who are interested in fiber, yarn, and color. So that's kind of evolving, and we're doing some research, and we're getting excited about wool, as usual. The other piece I did is I did a mini trek, if you will, to Mountain Meadow Wool. I did an interview with the two founders of that mill in Wyoming, and I'm in the process of pulling that together. It'll be its own separate piece, and it will be as an auditory interview. But what I'm going to do is they've given me pictures and video, and I'm going to put together a montage so that you can watch that while you listen and or knit, glance up. It's 10 o'clock, so sorry. sorry. So that, it's just something that you can have in the background. It's a very interesting tale. And someday I'd like to make sure we get to the Mountain Meadow Wool mill. I've had the opportunity to see their yarns in person. Excuse me. To see their yarns in person because they donated to the retreat, but I have not had the opportunity to knit with it. So last, I'm going to leave you here. I'm going to go right to a fond farewell, but I do have a Textiles in Time, which I'll insert here. And the Textiles in Time is not an ancient story. It's going to be my story. It's the way that I've come to the craft, and I wrote it in a blog post, and I thought I would read it and record it and throw in pictures and give you something to listen to and take a look at. So that'll be Textiles in Time this week.
My introduction to and fascination with fiber is rooted strongly in the sheep, deep in the wool, and resides on a farm on an island in the North Sea. Prior to finding myself at Fursness Farm, Edie Orkney, Scotland, I'd never given knitting or spinning much thought, and I would never call myself a fiber artist. I do not create patterns or seek new techniques. I did not come to knitting by way of yarn or the longing to create beautiful garments. I came to the craft of knitting, cold off the lambing hill, through the mist and damp, tired and slightly bereft. I came to the craft of knitting, carrying chilled lambs smeared with manure and high with the marigold healthy spry triplets. When I knit or spin, this is where I go. I go back to the heather hill, to long nights, well-deserved naps, and hot steaming mugs of tea. I recently discovered that the fiber in my life is a connection to time and place, not process, beauty, or community. They are added bonuses, but not what I seek when I pick up the string and sticks. No, the string is memory. I can feel it. As I suss out this interesting epiphany, it becomes apparent to me why this Project Fiber Trek has evolved. It encompasses the heart of the craft, the soul of the medium. It is where it all begins. When we visit the farm, the shepherd, or the shepherdess, we are at the heart of our craft. When we select the yarn, we touch the soul, the essence of hard work, pride, death, birth, the cycle. I have become quite particular over the past year as to what yarn I purchased, not for any other reason than I want to connect with the heart and soul of my craft. I want to pick up my project and feel the farm. Every stitch I take, I want to have soul. This was a blog post that I composed in April 2012 entitled Soulful Stash. When I did some reflection on what knitting really meant to me, what fiber meant to me, and why Fiber Trek felt so important. I went to Scotland on a study abroad program and happened to meet a young man and spend some time with him and his family on an island. And they did beef and sheep, and they had a garden and chickens and ducks, and that was the lifestyle. And they had one shop. They didn't have a pub on the island. You know, it was it was what we did. We drank tea, we dealt with the animals, and we went to sleep, and we were well fed. But I've never gotten over that experience, and it was a turning point in my textiles and time, if you will. And I had an inclination towards handcraft history and Laura Ingalls Wilder, you know. So I had that kind of humming around, and I had quilted and sewed, and I was interested in baking through my grandmother. But the idea of wanting a way to connect with that memory, which was so important, is really what knitting and fiber play in my life. As many of you may have gathered, the yarns that I work with tend to be rather rustic and reflective of landscape, natural browns and grays and cream and, earthy tone hues. And I think that's just because that's comforting for me. And I loved my morning during lambing. I mean, that's what I did. I went up and I walked this heather hill, this moors, kind of peat mossy, and looked for moms with their new lambs, and we walked them down, separated them out between twins and singles, and if anybody was lambing or having trouble, or we could check on that, and there was a rhythm to that just resonated with, my little soul. Not, there's that foo-foo magic wool chatter coming in again. So I always wanted to throw that out there because somebody had asked, and I don't think I've ever really chatted about that on the show, what really is at the heart of what I'm doing, the project, and what motivates me. And I hope that it's compelling for you to reflect on where you lie on that continuum, how you came to the craft, what you choose to knit with, what it brings into your life. And I think that's the piece that's really hard to communicate to other people. It's not just knitting, and it's not just spinning. It's something much broader and bigger than that. With that, I will leave you, and if you feel like you would want to share any of your thoughts about being connected to fiber in the community, feel free to do that in the thread.
So a fond farewell to you. Thank you so much for joining me. There are a few pieces here. I wanted to let you know that I have started a Instagram, it's not a campaign, but just a weekly reflection on some whiskey and wool. So this time of year, I tend to get a little bit more of a taste because I'm not just working with what I can, kind of my standard whiskeys like Old Pulteney or Highland Park. But during this season of merriment, we tend to bring in a few scotches, single malts that we haven't had the chance to try, or they're special, or they don't last very long, if you will. So we'll be posting a little bit about pairing those two ideas. So the concept of that drink, and it's what it reflects in wool. Maybe wool I'm working with, maybe wool I own, something that inspires me, because those two pieces, those two elements for me are very, they have a correlative component, whiskey and wool. I feel like one inspires the other sometimes, for me. I also wanted to, again, thank you for continued support. If you are looking for the hashtag for whiskey and wool is hashtag whiskey wool. And if you are also inspired, sorry, that was a big jump. If you are also inspired to participate, feel free to use that hashtag and describe how you feel those are connected, etc. You can find that post on my Instagram account. My Instagram account is by request now, so if you are a knitterly, fabricy, fibery traveler, go ahead and send me a request. I'm happy to, participate and have you see what's going on. So please feel free to do that. I've set that up, and just hit the request button, and I'll be sure to say yes if you are, tending towards the interests of Fiber Trek. And what else? Oh, I forgot to tell you. There's a new podcast called by B. Mandarine. I don't know if I said that right. I just wanted to throw that in. She has one episode up. She also has a beautiful blog, and she has beautiful photographs on Instagram. And I've been following her for a while, but she has her first episode up on YouTube under Mandarine, Mandarines, or you can go to her blog and connect through there if you'd like to subscribe. So she has beautiful taste in yarns and very inspiring landscape. She's in Latvia, and so I think that if you enjoy Fiber Trek, you'll enjoy her reflections and her experience with the fiber world. I also found the Woolful blog. She's beginning a podcast at the end of November. I came to her via that announcement, but I found a great post on superwash. So if you're interested in reading a little bit about superwash wool, head over to the Woolful blog. She's also on Instagram, and I'm looking forward to her podcast coming out. So those are two opportunities to look into to expand your ideas and your interests and your knowledge on what's happening in the yarn fiber world, the industry. So that being said, you can join our group on Ravelry, Fiber Trek. And I am on iTunes. I don't talk about it very much, but feel free to go through iTunes. I have to pay for that service, and right now I do. That may shift as if our budget shifts, but I am on iTunes right now and doing my best to upload to that site and make sure that the feed works, but it's not something that's intuitive for me to figure that all out. So, but I am there. I am on Instagram and Ravelry and YouTube, and I have no catchy tagline to get myself out of my podcast, but I always wish you the best. I always wish you great fibery, smooth knitting, and that you find the most perfect yarn and perfect fiber that you could ever want, and you stash it away. And yes, that's my tagline. I hope to be back after Thanksgiving. I don't think that should be a problem, and I know that Morgan will be back in the middle of December. So in the meantime, be well. Bye.